Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's the Kitty G, and I'm back again with another video. And today, this is the first episode of All or Nothing Arsenal, and we're going to be talking about the whole entire season, getting through the expectations, the Arteta conversation, players, injuries, how we got to this point. And I'm going to be bringing on a new guest every single time to discuss this season, similar to the documentary from Amazon, but a much lower budget. How we got to this point, and I'm going to be bringing on a guest. Okay, so yeah, how you doing, Tom?
Yeah, doing good, mate. Very good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. Tom, you guys already know Tom, the wonderful guy from the Gooner Talk, does the tactical breakdowns, everything else. And you know what? As much as you guys know him from YouTube, I also know him from his journalistic stuff too. I read a lot of his stuff that he does on the one-on-one goal.
101 great goals, yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually done some videos on your articles. So you know what? This is nice to have you on. And I've been watching you before I even started doing YouTube. So like, this is great to have you on my channel. I appreciate it, man.
No problem at all, mate. Absolutely no problem.
There you go. So now let's go strength to strength. We got to talk about Arsenal. We got to talk about the club that we love, the stress that they cause us, everything that they do throughout the season. But to start at the beginning of the season, what were your expectations going into the season after the window, after we signed Partey?
I mean, after we signed Partey, I thought you'd be looking at trying to challenge as much as we could to get into those European places. And I do mean the Champions League as much as possible. There are other teams, of course, in the league that you can't discount. And I didn't foresee some of the teams that have done so well, like West Ham, we'll come on to in a bit. But yeah, my expectations were that we would challenge for those top four places. We wouldn't go on certain runs that we did, and we wouldn't put in so many just difficult performances because we upgraded two key areas of the team at centre-back and central midfield, and we build upon maybe that FA Cup win. So I was positive about the season, but I thought after the first couple of games, you could already see that there was going to be issues.
Yeah. Okay. So
I thought after the first couple of games,
sorry about that. Rookie mistake. Okay, so after the first couple games, we won 2 games, but fans were not convinced, right? We that always happens. Beginning of the season, we're always near the top, then we fall off. When we fall off, this time we fell off hard. We kept losing and meltdown after meltdown every single week. How did we get by that? Like I remember looking at the table recently, and I'm like, how did we get here? And then I looked at the results. I'm like, we kept losing games. We kept drawing. It got to a point where I did not see a win on the form sheet.
Yeah, it was a case where obviously we got a couple of wins against. We looked really good on the first day against Fulham, but I think we can admit that was probably more down to how poor Fulham were at the start of the season necessarily than how good we were, especially considering the fact that Willian was one of our standout players in that game, and he wasn't able to kind of continue that form, unfortunately, for us. I also think if you look at the games against West Ham and the game against Sheffield United, despite winning those games, we didn't look wholly convincing in those matches. And obviously we needed a late goal against West Ham with Eddie Nketiah popping up with a goal, I think it was. And then also the Sheffield United game, although we went 2-0 up, we needed the second half. We needed Pepe to come on with a little bit of magic and spice for that second goal. And then when they scored, things all of a sudden looked a bit panicky. And that last kind of 10 minutes of panic has kind of been Arsenal in a nutshell, of just panicking at the wrong moments and conceding silly goals. So when we hit that patch of form, where I think we won 1 game in 10 against Man United, that game away at Old Trafford, which at the time looked to be a huge kind of turning point for, I thought it was going to be for us, because you look back and think that we've not won there in the league since 2006, which is a crazy amount of time. And when we beat Leicester away from home later on in the season, that was the first time we beat in kind of a top 4 side away from home since 2015 in terms of the placings in the league. So we were breaking these records that were positive, but at the same time breaking records for not picking up enough points, having the worst Premier League start in our history. Partey was continually injured, and we were having issues with kind of performances where we just couldn't create, and it didn't matter what we seemed to do and how we wanted to play. We couldn't create chances. And the creating of those chances that we did make, we then couldn't score them. Aubameyang was missing chances, Lacazette, Saka, all of these guys were missing chances, and we were being dragged basically by our defence at this point. And we had about the 3rd best defensive record in the league prior to playing Aston Villa, when we got absolutely blitzed 3-0 and lost Partey just before half-time. And that game, I think, the 3-0 against Aston Villa was certainly kind of an encapsulating metaphor, I suppose, for the first half of the season.
Do you remember people saying oh, it's Arteta's fault for not playing Ozil. Remember, people were saying it's Arteta's fault that Aubameyang is not firing, but he's still misfiring for now. It's why doesn't he just play Aziz? Why doesn't he just play Martinelli? Why doesn't he give Saliba a chance? Remember? Saliba should play. He can play in the Premier League. Like, all these things that kept going on. But the funniest thing of all was they're saying his treatment of Ozil was the reason why Arteta out. Some people were saying that. Some people were saying if Ozil was in this team, he would have probably given us something. That Ozil conversation was such a big conversation, hurting us throughout the whole early part of the season that it carried on until he was gone. And I'm just happy that part's over.
The thing about Ozil is that, ironically, whilst I agree with you that I don't think it would have had a huge effect, I think that Ozil being in the team would have helped purely from the fact that we just didn't have a natural number 10 in the team whatsoever. So obviously having a presence, no matter if it's Ozil or Smith Rowe or whoever, and we were relying on Willian playing at 10 and Joe Willock coming in and playing at 10, and it just wasn't working. Maybe it would have been slightly better, but I think what we've seen with the benefit of hindsight is when you've seen Ozil go off to play for Fenerbahce, and he has been exceptionally poor there as well. And there's articles going out this week about how poor he's kind of been since then. That it shows that wouldn't have been our saving grace whatsoever. And his kind of headspace, I think, was elsewhere. The Saliba thing, as you mentioned, also cropping up. I remember writing an article about Saliba playing against Jules in I think it was the Papa John's Trophy or something, as it's called. And I wrote an article basically where his performance highlighted to me why Arteta is kind of a little bit reluctant to put him into the team right now, because he was making mistakes, he was forcing things a lot. And I think maybe that I avoided a little bit of the context around his situation and the personal side of things, but his actual performance was very concerning. But now he's gone on loan to Nice and he looks fantastic. And I'm looking forward to doing some stuff on him a little bit later in the season.
Yeah, I remember seeing clips of him in the under-23s playing a ball for Balogun, and they're saying these two need to be starting in the Arsenal first team. It's like, are we really looking at clips from the under-23s to determine who should be starting and who shouldn't be starting in the first team? It doesn't. It kind of seems very reactionary. But at the same time, let's get back to put ourselves in that space. Tom, at the time, I was hearing if Arteta was sacked after one of those results, that if we got in a new manager, not only would we make top 4, but the league was still possible to challenge at the time with the players we have. So
I didn't hear any of that, but that sounds ridiculous.
I am directly, if I were to go back and directly quote the person, this is a poor league. Look at how Liverpool have been performing. At the time, they were at the top of the table when we were performing this bad. And you remember how bad Liverpool were throughout this season. And they were at the top of the table. Tottenham were at the top of the table at one point. You had Aston Villa at the top of the table. You had Chelsea at the top of the table. You had Man City and Manchester United. So just to give you a reference, if you remember, this seems like a decade ago. But fans were saying, sack him now, bring in a new manager, and you know what? Things will improve. What do you say to those people at that point?
At that point, there was to be fair, if I'd play devil's advocate and be balanced as much as feasibly possible, there was a point I remember when I said that if we lose against Burnley at home, it's the closest I feel I could get to thinking it's getting to the point now. It doesn't matter what the process is. We're getting so close to that relegation zone that there might not be a choice at this stage. And then we did lose against Burnley. And obviously we were the architects of our own downfall with the own goal from Aubameyang and Xhaka's red card. But at that point, it was very difficult to kind of really defend the situation. I remember going on with Terry on the terrace and defending it at that point, and there was a lot of people that were saying, like, look, we need to get rid of him now, as you say. And there was still in the back of my mind thinking that if he comes out of this, then he did what Unai Emery failed to do. Unai Emery, at the same kind of period of time in the season last year, could not turn around the form, could not recover the situation. He couldn't get the players back on side. And at that point, Arteta was in a very, very similar situation. The difference is that whilst Emery was sacked because he did lose that connection with the team and couldn't arrest the situation, Arteta did turn things around. But unfortunately, this first half of the season, or first third to a half of the season, means we are where we are now. That is, and we'll come on to the later stuff, but this first third to a half of the season was so bad that it has just been a complete brand of negativity on our season.
Okay, now I'll take you back to the Everton game just before the Chelsea game. at that point, with the Chelsea and Brighton game coming before the New Year's, did you expect us to win a game? Because I at that point, I'll put you in my headspace. I was so down because I'm getting battered on the football terrace every single day. These guys are battering me. I'm getting absolutely hamstrung. People Arteta out are battering me. Our own fans are getting at me because they're saying, you know what, you're protecting these idiots at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, you know what, Eddie Nketiah was as at fault of us losing that game or drawing or whatever the result was at that point. I don't even remember anymore. I think we lost against Everton.
Yeah, 2-1.
Yeah, so Eddie Nketiah was in fault as much as any other player in that game, but he does not get any criticism. All the criticism was going to the manager. All the criticism was going to the fan base for believing in this guy after losing so much. They were looking at records. They're showing records of Emery's time, Arteta's time, and Arsene Wenger's time, showing how bad Arteta is. And at the same time, you have Chelsea, who are about to face Lampard's looking like he's flying.
Yeah.
Right? I thought there was no way we were going to beat them. We ended up beating them. But did you expect us to beat Chelsea that game, going into that game?
I was dreading the game. I was absolutely dreading the game because you've got a team. I was at the Emirates when we lost to Lampard when Arteta took over, and we dominated the game for most of it. We were 1-0 up, and then in the last few minutes, we utterly just fell apart. And I think it was it Jorginho, I think, scored from the back post of the corner, and then Abraham scored from a counter-attack. And I was thinking that was when we were looking all right defensively under Arteta. And although we were okay defensively, that Chelsea team was so much better than the Chelsea team of last season that I was like, they're going to blitz us. They're going to, even under Lampard's and his struggles, I thought they were going to destroy us, to be honest. And then seeing Smith Rowe in the lineup, which I think also links to kind of the I was going to say negative criticism, but maybe the skewed negative bias against Arteta, that some people put that down to luck. And that frustrated me a lot when people said that Smith Rowe being selected for that game was down to luck and the fact he was forced into it, because he still has to make this choice. He's got Joe Willock on the bench, who he's tried at 10 a number of times already in the season, and it's not worked. And people have criticised Arteta for sticking with players in positions when they've not worked. So when it comes to changing his mind and trying something different and putting Smith Rowe in, the bias then rises, because it's not a case of, oh, you know what, fair play, I'll hold my hands up. Arteta put Smith Rowe in when he could have put Willock in again. It wasn't that. It was, oh, we got lucky. He was forced into it. And it's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. And I think that there is a lot of kind of down to the Arsenal fan base. There's a lot of people that once, especially because we as a fan base are very social, we're very, very active. The kind of the loud majority of us that are on.
Did you see the Granit Xhaka hate today? Because
of course. The video, and there's people saying, oh, but he's still rubbish. And I thought that video was great, by the way. It was absolutely fantastic. But the point being that I think that once you're on social media and you put your opinion out, especially if you're a YouTuber or a content creator and you put your opinion out there, it's very, very difficult to then change your mind, because what you've said is set in stone. It's in the past. Or if you're on Twitter, when you put a tweet out, it's there forever. So as soon as you change your mind, or you say, you know, I'll hold my hands up, I was wrong, you will get set upon by other content creators, as I have been, and by other people on social media. And so people find it very difficult. But I thought Arteta deserved huge amounts of credit for selecting Emile Smith Rowe in that Chelsea game. And it was one of the key factors, along with Martinelli's presence too, as to why we won that game.
Okay, now we got to move on to Balogun. If you remember, after Eddie missed that chance against Everton, people were saying Balogun needs to be in the 11 for now on. Eddie needs to be forced out. And you know what? It looks like Eddie is being forced out, but Balogun is not being put in the 11 even till now. Do you feel like does Balogun justify getting any starts at this point, or the contract situation? I trust the club, and I feel like the club made the right decision, because now it looks like he signed a deal, and it doesn't make sense in increasing a player's marketability when he doesn't have you signed down as a first team player for the future, at least.
I agree with you. I think the club did it in the right way this season. Regarding previous seasons, we should have given Balogun a chance earlier, and we shouldn't have got ourselves into this situation. I think that is on the club for putting a lot too much stock, I think, in Nketiah when he wasn't really showing any kind of progression or any sign. But this season, when you get into a situation where he's got less than a year left, and you can't let the player dictate those negotiations. And obviously, from the more recent news, it turns out that we've probably done it in the right way, because it looks like he's going to be signing a new deal now, which is great, fantastic. But yeah, to play him when we were trying to convince him to sign a new deal, you can't give time to a player in the first team that might not be here because of a situation like this. I understand that there's other circumstances like David Luiz's situation or Lacazette's situation, whatever, that's different. But with a young kid, when people were calling, do you remember when people were saying we should give him 100 grand a week? Do you remember people saying that?
I do recall a certain individual saying that, but
I don't talk about anyone in particular, but I remember people saying it.
Yeah. No, the reason why they said it is because of Callum Hudson-Odoi. He started a dangerous precedent. But the thing is, Callum Hudson-Odoi had Bayern Munich after him.
He was an England international at that point.
Yeah, where Balogun has not even had a first-team chance yet. And Balogun, in the grand scheme of things, he could be great. But you know what I was saying to people? I was always saying to them, Chuba Akpan could have been great. Eddie Nketiah after Chuba Akpan could have been great after those 2 goals was in Norwich. Or
2 headers, I think it was.
2 headers. And then now Balogun's chance is coming. Eddie Nketiah is going to be forced out. Lacazette most likely might be out. And you know what? Martinelli and what's his name, Balogun, are both going to have more chances to show their worth next season, and that's great. But we still need another striker. Guess what? People are saying we currently don't need a replacement for Lacazette if we sell him.
It's tricky, isn't it, to talk about kind of replacements? If you bring a replacement in, is that then blocking Balogun's route into the first team? You'd probably say it is, depending on the age or profile of the player that you bring in. The thing about Lacazette is that he's missing big chances, and if we extend him, I don't want to see it as an extension for more than a year. It should be a year. He's hitting 30 in May. It should be a year extension. We should be treating these guys the same as Chelsea do when they hit that 30 barrier. Give them just a year extension minimum. That's it. Then you move forwards. I think that when you look at ultimately Balogun, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him straight away because there's so much expectation, and this is a guy that was outscored by Eddie Nketiah in the youth system. So we can't all of a sudden throw all this hope onto him, and that's what we've got to hope to. Okay,
this is perfect segue into the trust the process conversation. But this is Tommy. He's a West Ham fan. He's loving life right now with Jesse Lingard and them being in the top 4 and in amongst the top 4. But he's saying, I love Igal, but you're going nowhere with Arteta. Oh, Tom, mind the gap and trust your imaginary process. Now, when you hear trust the process, it nowadays it's used as a tool to beat Arteta out people with.
Yeah.
Originally, my theory of the whole process is it originates from the 76ers basketball team. And what they did was, Tom, they if you're not familiar, what they did was they intentionally lost for 3 seasons on a row to get the highest possible draft pick to get rewarded for losing.
Oh, wow. Now, I didn't know that. No.
So what trust the process originally came from was...
I don't want us to do that.
No, I'm literally telling you, the original guy was Sam Hinkie, GM for the 76ers. He was originally sacked by the NBA. They intervened 2 years into the process.
Right.
He ended up getting a good enough team to win a championship, but they never actually won it because the next GM that came in sold 15 of their assets for nothing.
Right. Okay.
So they collected all the assets by trusting the process. They got where they needed to get to, but because the original person in the process that started the whole process got sacked, they never actually seen it through. And it's basically they're in La La Land. They still have the assets. They still have the main 2 assets, which is the Martinellis or the Sakas in our world, where for them it's the Joel Embiids and the Ben Simmons. But now we're talking about basketball, so I've gone too far. But now you know the story. Now you know the story.
I know the story.
What do you think about that whole process?
I get the concept.
There is no process.
Well, I get the concept, and I'll respond to Tommy in a sec. Like the concept around kind of you have to go backwards before you can go forwards it's a solid theory. I mean, I used kind of the analogy of it being a graph in the sense that Arsenal have been declining on this graph for quite a while, and it's not a V shape. It's not going to suddenly go down and then all of a sudden quickly turn back up. It's going to be a U shape where it goes down and gradually curves out, and then hopefully will go in a more positive direction. It doesn't change overnight. No coach, I feel, comes in and just completely transforms this squad. We haven't got a situation like Thomas Tuchel did at Chelsea, where he's come into a squad that's had £200 million worth of investment in an already good team that's in a Champions League semi-final now and had the potential to do that. It's not that situation. It's very different because the quality that we've got available to ourselves. The process is, in a way, I'm a bit sick of kind of the tagline. I use it now, in a sense, as a little bit of harmless banter on social media in a way, because people get so sick of people saying it, and it's the only kind of stick to wind up some other people with. But it still does have merit, because the whole point of what a process is, and the word process in itself, process isn't a turning point. Process isn't a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing that needs patience and time. That's why I sit where I am, where I'm willing to wait until next season. And from day one in next season, if we've added a lot of players and we've added quality and we're still not improving, then I think there's a lot of serious questions to ask. But right now, this process is far from complete and far from kind of evolving yet. So in my opinion, we've got to give it that time, but others aren't as patient.
Okay, so now the winning run comes. And for me and you, we've been quite visible with social media and everything in our YouTube channels, and letting people know that we're still backing the manager. And what makes you back this manager? People want to ask that are Arteta out, and I know why I'm backing the manager. Obviously, I'm not as well articulated as you in explaining my answer, because I wanted to bring you on because you explain your answer so well. My thought process was, I haven't seen enough from him, and I need to see him next season after he's had another window and maybe at least 10 games to reassess the situation come next season. But you sent me a message, and I felt like your explanation is so good, I might just start using it. Just let people know what you said to me in that message, if you remember.
Oh, man. Is this a DM that I sent you a while ago?
No, it was literally like a couple of days ago. You said something across the lines. You haven't seen enough evidence and you need more time.
Oh, yeah. So when I was saying, it's like, I'll make my judgment. Like, I don't feel like there's enough evidence at the moment with this squad to say that or another coach could be doing better with this team right now, was effectively. I look at the improvements that we've made, and whilst they're not that clear on the pitch as of yet, the improvements that we're making are in areas that I have longed for change at Arsenal for so long. Someone that will come in and change the culture, someone that will make people accountable, will not make these players turn around and think that a loss is acceptable, because it isn't. Someone that will come in and actually add and spend money on players in key positions that we need, not spending 70 million quid on a luxury winger, which Unai Emery wanted in Zaha. He didn't get him, he got Pepe. But the idea around spending that amount of money when we needed to address the centre-back and centre midfield positions, which Arteta then did, and then the attacking midfield role with Martin Odegaard on loan in the short term, because that's all we can do right now. Those things tell me that we're on the right path to change, and that it's going to take some time and money and investment. And that's the biggest thing, is that we need the investment. Arteta needs the investment. He needs to be backed. If he's not backed, there's no point even talking about Arteta, because he's going to fail without that investment, as any coach I feel would.
Okay, so I have a clipboard here. I just want to bring this up quickly. Can you see that?
I can, yep.
Okay, so I've highlighted the midfield, and I've given Xhaka the ball. I've highlighted Bellerin, and I've highlighted these three. This for me is the team. If healthy going into the next game, this is the team that I would put out. So if David Luiz is healthy, I'm not sure if he 100% is.
He's not fit. No, he's not going to be
so
fit.
David Luiz would be out, then it would be Holding, right? So that would be Holding. And just imagine Holding was number 23 for a second. So my point here is the midfield are the two people who are blamed the most. But the reason why they're blamed the most is because Saka's a youngster, Smith Rowe's a youngster, Odegaard's not our player, Martinelli's there, so on the left, Willian is not trustworthy, and Pepe has not consistently been given a run of game time to be considered as a mainstay in the team. Lacazette has been probably one of our better players statistically, but has been inconsistent at times, i.e. the miss last week, where I still don't know how he missed. And then Gabriel, up and down. Cedric, he's not a left back. Bellerin, people don't want to see him there. Some people would actually play Chambers instead. And Leno has started to deceive for some people. I generally think he's been a good keeper, but there's people who even say we should upgrade on him. Now, my question to you is, do you see this square as a problem, or do you see the midfield as a problem? Because to me, the front three in front of the midfield is much bigger is a much bigger issue and should be addressed more than that midfield. That midfield partnership for me is decent enough to keep us going for even next year. I won't be complaining if we have a midfield partnership of Xhaka and Partey, if that means we have a new striker, possibly a better midfielder in the middle, or better than Smith Rowe, more experience, possibly Odegaard, possibly Jack Grealish or Houssam Aouar, to name a few. Get a backup midfielder to replace Ceballos and Elneny, like a Basuma or Senda Bergs, and a possibly new right back. Those are more important to me. The people in the squares, that areas are more important to me than the midfield. What do you think?
I agree with you that it's a good kind of midfield pivot. I disagree that I would be happy if it was just those two, because I think we need to add a centre midfielder. It doesn't necessarily have to be the out-and-out upgrade on Xhaka, but it should be an upgrade on Xhaka, or we should be aiming to bring someone in. But you're right, that is in my mind, it's a good centre midfield pairing. Right back is a problem, as you've highlighted. Left back is a problem because we've not got a backup, and Tierney is not reliable with his fitness. But the three attacking players you're talking about, the fact that we've got a lot of inexperience in that front line is a concern, 100%. And that we want to desperately see more inexperience put in because our senior players have not shown up. People are desperate to see Martinelli play more because Willian's been poor and Aubameyang's been poor when on the left and stuff like that. And that is an issue. That is an issue with our senior players not turning up. And Arteta has basically fallen on that sword this season a lot by putting faith in those experienced senior players to turn things around, which is ironic because people want us to bring in a more experienced coach when, ironically, experience has been one of our biggest downfalls this season with those experienced players not turning up for us. So I agree with you that we need to add in those areas. For me, right back's a big area. Saliba coming back next season has to be integrated 100%, especially after his loan. That will shore up that right centre-back position. Left centre-back, I think, is sorted with Gabriel Marie. They're excellent options for us there. Leno is questionable. I really back the guy. I really, really back the guy. But these last couple, 2-3 weeks, the flappy arms, I'm really, really struggling with that. And
I don't blame him for that goal that was conceded. I blame
against SLAVIA.
You know who I blame for the goal that was conceded? Cedric. Because Cedric, you know where Cedric was on the pitch? He was near the touchline, near the away bench. How did you go from a position where you're the left back on the left side of the pitch near the touchline to pass it back for a corner? It makes no sense.
All I would say is, though, that we got knocked out of the Europa League last season because Leno did the exact same thing where he passed it to the corner instead of just kicking it out. So I get the idea and I get that. But obviously, I talk about this with Granit Xhaka a lot, is that Granit Xhaka's errors that lead to goal, a hell of a lot happens after the actual error that should also stop the error from leading to a goal in itself. It's very rare that it's actually a mistake like the Burnley game where he kicks it straight into Wood and he scores. The issue is that Leno, for me, his confidence is gone. It's really dipping. And that then has an infectious effect on the back four. If you've got a keeper behind you that you can't trust, it makes you on edge. It puts you on edge and it makes you nervous. And that in itself makes us more defensively weak. If it was up to me, I would have kept Martinez 100%. I understand why we sold him, because no one was coming in for Leno and we needed the money. So I understand why we sold him. If it was up to me, it was Martinez, but it's a bygone thing. It doesn't matter anymore. The point is that there's a real question about the goalkeeper that we sign, because we do need to sign a goalkeeper because we need a backup, whatever. But we now need to question,
it looks
is the
like
goalkeeper
we're
that we
sign
sign
Matt
to be
Ryan,
better?
to be honest, mate.
It could be, and that's fine. That's okay, because he's a solid backup, but it is a position that is gradually being more questionable. That I think.
You know who I want? I want the young Freddie from Newcastle.
Freddie Woodman, yeah.
Freddie Woodman, yeah, that's who I'd want, because he has scope to possibly turn into our version of what Manchester United have currently with De Gea, which is a pretty good. They have 3 really good goalkeepers. Let's be real. It's different levels though with what they're doing and what we're doing now. I've done the Granit Xhaka thing numerous times, but I'm going to ask you, what's your stance on Granit Xhaka? A lot of people divide opinion. I personally think he's one of our more integral players to the way we play, and he has been under Unai Emery, he has been under Arsene Wenger, and he now is under Arteta. And people somehow cannot fathom the idea that he is an undroppable player. But guess what? When he is dropped or he's injured, Tom, what happens? We lose.
Yeah, he is integral. the thing about football is that you're highlighted for your mistakes more than your successes. That is the way football is. And Granit Xhaka, because he's so trusted by coaches, he plays nearly every single game. And because he's a player that is not perfect and has a flaw and has a fault in him, that you are going to get one or two. And it is the case where we get just under 2 errors leading to goal per season. And that then stereotypes him as this player. But he is, as you say, so important. He has been statistically, according to all of the analysis that's been done this season, statistically he's been Arsenal's best player this season. And I know a lot of people say that's mental. Saka, you look at what Saka's done, you look at maybe someone like Thomas Partey, etc., or Kieran Tierney, but statistically, and I know people don't buy into it all the time, but he has been our best player statistically. I don't think he's been the best player by eye, but statistically he has been our best player and is integral to what Arsenal need to do. And he's shown, especially on Sunday against, was it Sunday or Saturday against Sheffield United?
That's per 90 minutes. He's been statistically our best.
Yes,
player.
Statistically per 90. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. If you take away per 90 players, it has to be Lacazette or like somebody who's contributed a lot.
Tierney, I suppose, is the guy. Without Tierney, we've looked exceptionally poor on the left-hand side.
Matt Ryan got a high rating for the one game he plays, so technically no one's going to beat 7.6, right?
Yeah. I mean, that shows you 7.6 isn't an average. It's a high end for Arsenal this season. It's been really poor.
Yes, and yes, I am fasting, guys, so we will be wrapping up the video in the next 10 minutes. But before we go, we're going to have the Arteta conversation one more time. When will you say, for me, 10 games into next season, if the transfer window was rubbish and I'm not seeing an improvement with not the style, just the results. The style can be the same, but if the results have not actually changed and it's the same up and down inconsistencies, at that point, it's untenable for me. That's when I will say, you know what? It's unfeasible to continue. If 10 games into the next season, there's no improvement from the back room, there's not been any improvements in signing. We're going to the next season with Dani Ceballos on loan for the 3rd time, and Elneny's still there. And you know what? Hector Bellerin, somehow his move to PSG falls apart, and he goes on a loan to Barcelona, and we have Maitland-Niles in the midfield I'm just gonna lose my head. That's when I'm gonna lose it.
I'm very much on the same kind of wavelength. If we've in the summer added players, improved positions, and we're still not improving, then as I said, and I'll do the thing which so many people don't allow you to do on social media and YouTube, and hold my hands up and say, look, guys, I was wrong. It was a case where it's not worked, and Arteta is not the guy. But I'm not there yet. I haven't seen enough evidence yet, as we've talked about. So it will be from day one. You say 10 games for me. It's from day one. I want to start seeing improvement. I want to see progression. I know that we need to gel, and there needs to be time for them to work with the new players that will come in, fingers crossed. But it's still, I want to see that evidence, because the first kind of bit of our season is kind of where we are now. The start of the season is important, and the season starts in September.
Okay. So all or nothing, Europa League. Is it which side are you sitting on?
As in, if he doesn't get it and he's gone, sort of thing.
Yeah.
No. Again, I'll stick to my guns. I said, if we go out the Europa League, if we don't qualify for Europe next season, then next season we've got a chance to build without that distraction. I'd love us to qualify. I think if he wins the Europa League, it's an incredible achievement based upon what he's had this season.
It will be the biggest, like
modern last decade, easy, like bigger than the FA Cup wins we've had. It doesn't get close to Wenger's golden era.
It would have been as big as Emery winning the Europa League, because
it's bigger than that, because Emery took us backwards. So to get that now, and to take what Emery left us to a squad and add just 2 players to the first team starting 11 that then get us to a Europa League and back into the Champions League, it would be huge. That's what I'm really scared about Thursday. I'm really scared.
What I'm worried about? There's a lot of fans that are not going to enjoy it, because they're going to celebrate it, but then 2 days later they're going to be like, oh my God, we're in the Champions League. We're going to be in the first draw, but the second draw we could be facing a Dortmund, or
that's great,
or somebody who is a higher. Everyone considers everybody else a higher stature, but you know what? Yeah. The way what you just said is right. It doesn't. Who is Dortmund? Who are these teams? Like when it comes down to it, I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I mean, like, people are talking about Arsenal as if we're not a big team. Chelsea fans are coming to me like they're Real Madrid and they've won the Champions League 13 times. You've won it once. Relax.
I think I get this sentiment around why do you want to be in the Champions League and a chance of winning it, but the fact of the matter is that you've got to be in it to win it. I didn't have Chelsea down as semi-finalists this season, and it looks like they're going to be. I didn't see Chelsea winning it when they did win it. They were arguably the worst Champions League winning team of all time with that side. But when you look at kind of, I'm going to go back and say maybe Porto was under Mourinho, but when you look at being in the Champions League, what it means to a team, playing in the Europa League is so bloody boring. It's really boring, especially during the group stage. And it's financially important, and you're getting the better players, and it gives you that stature, it gives you those bragging rights, and it gives you the opportunity to have a shot. And that's what I want at Arsenal again, is whether or not we can win it is irrelevant to me. Being in it is what's most important. And that's why it's key that Arteta, fingers crossed, can get us in there this season or next.
Okay. And do you think if you were going to put money on it, do you think we can go through the Slavia Prague tie? And if we do go through that, are we going to be here again 2 weeks later against whoever we face? Because Unai Emery has said, and I quote, "I want Arsenal because I'm going to knock them out."
Is that what he said?
Basically, like in Spanish. He said there's quotes of him saying he wants to face Arsenal because he wants to knock them out. And I don't know why it hasn't been spoken about enough, but the moment we get them in the tie, it's going to be spoken about, and we're just going to get prepared for that. We're going to get bombarded with it. Are you looking it up as we speak?
I'm trying to find it. Yeah, I can't see it.
Gunnar Express, if you can tell me the exact quote, I'll find it. But yeah, Unai Emery has said he wants to face Arsenal.
If that's what he said, then it'll be great to knock him out. So I haven't seen it personally anyway, and I'm usually pretty clued up on that stuff, so I've not seen it if he has said it. But it'd be great if we got there. I don't really care if we get Villarreal or Dinamo, because I don't really care about Arsenal and making sure we're as good as we can be. I thought Slavia were pretty poor on Thursday, and if we'd have won that game 1-0, we would never have had the absolute utter kind of meltdown that we saw, and it was very unfortunate that we did end up drawing that game. We should beat Slavia on Thursday. If we don't beat Slavia on Thursday, it's going to be really toxic, and I'm ready for it, as I always am as an Arsenal fan, but we'll go into next season hopefully with a better squad and a better kind of outlook and an idea about where we need to go.
Yeah, personally, this game tomorrow, win, lose, or draw, I'm not gonna lose my shit about Arteta. I'm just gonna understand that, you know what, these players have been letting us down. And you know what, people say these are excuses, Tom, but there's so much reasons. Like, I think I watched a video with Harry Simeon where he named about 20 different things that have gone wrong that Arteta cannot control.
Yeah.
And then
they're called excuses, remember? So.
But then the people who say those are excuses still find time to mention the opposites.
Of course, that's just how it works. That's life.
Yeah.
That's life. It's always going to be like that, Agal. The thing is that I've learned about being on platforms like this and that is that you're never going to convince everyone. Like, you can't spend your life trying to convince someone to have the same opinions. You can explain your opinion as much as you like, but you can never get a guarantee of changing someone's mind. Just have the openness to have yours changed if you see enough evidence, but don't worry about everyone else, because whatever happens will happen at the end of the day.
Okay, and if the Europa League is all, and the season ending 10th, no European football, and we are getting nothing, which one are you picking? Obviously not picking. Which one do you think is more realistic to happen?
I think the more realistic thing is nothing. And I'm an optimist, but realistically, I think Man United are a lot stronger than us, and that was who we will probably have to face in the final. Realistically, this season, based upon everything we've seen and all the evidence, and despite my absolutely overriding optimism about things, the all is a much smaller percentage than the nothing. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so that's it for today, guys. Honestly, I don't know where Kesh is. He said he was just going to the store and came back, but he
Let
didn't come
down.
back. Yeah. Quick question for Tom. This is Gooner Express. You know him.
I do know him. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
lovely guy.
Taking us backwards. He says Arteta is taking us backwards. Thoughts?
I think he's arrested the slide that Emery started, and if we stick with him, fingers crossed, he can start turning it around more. Is what I'd say.
Yeah. And final thoughts. If Arteta was sacked, people keep naming unrealistic targets. Who would be a realistic target next season if things don't change?
As a manager, an unrealistic target.
No, a realistic target, because we've heard of Graham Potters, we've heard of
Yeah.
Simeones, we've heard of go to Leicester and grab their manager, go to this club, grab their manager. That doesn't work. He has to be out of a job or he has to be attainable.
Oh, I'll tell you that Graham Potter's looking pretty good. No, only joking, of course. I think that a realistic target, you'd have to be looking at a kind of maybe a Rafa Benitez for his experience and showing that he can improve kind of players. But yeah, a Nagelsmann I think is too far away, and someone like that I think they want to go. I think he'll end up at Bayern probably. Yeah, it's really tricky because I just don't think there's too many out there that really do take us much further ahead. I mean, I've seen suggestions for Eddie Howe, which I find comical. A guy that took Bournemouth down, we want as Arsenal's coach. So it's crazy stuff these days.
Hey man, we're definitely living in different times. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna just drop your link in the chat for anyone who wants to go check out Tom's channel. That's the link to Tom's channel right there. It's in the chat. Go subscribe there right now. If you haven't already subscribed to his channel is absolutely wonderful. And you know what? He's gonna be bringing us all the tactical breakdowns of any signing that we make. And you come over here and we're gonna be talking if they're good enough. Anyways, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. I'm gonna go eat and break my fast soon. Tom, you have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully I can have you on in the summer once all this stuff is done. And you know what, guys, this has been the first episode of All or Nothing. Tom has said it's going to be nothing. I'm hoping for all. We'll see who the next one is and what they think. Have a good one, guys.